I want to cover this morning is what before we went ahead and sent out the poll or actually the survey for the 123 to be able to sign up for the breakout sessions this afternoon. So if you take an opportunity to do that with Teams, we have to assign you manually to a breakout session. So when you pull up the survey 123, and I put that in the link a little bit earlier. So look at the chat. You'll be able to find that link, and then you'll be able to go there and select the one that you like to go ahead and select. We'll actually have two breakouts this afternoon with a lot of good information out there as well. And I just saw Gwen popped up with a question, will there be an evaluation at the end? Yes, there will be. We'll go ahead and get that out to you tomorrow and have that to where you can go ahead and complete that because we really want to know, we'd like to be able to plan other webinars like this, so we want to be able to do that. And Pete, you have a question as well?
Yeah, Robin, good morning. Can you put that back in the chat again? Because maybe it's just me, but I can never see anything in the chat
Okay,
before I actually join or you let me into the meeting.
sure. I'll go ahead and post that again for you so you have that information. So that will be great. Well, we've got a really busy day for you as well. The other thing is I want to make sure with the chat that if you leave for lunch or you go on a break, stay logged in because that helps the folks that are assigning everyone to the breakout sessions. They'll be able to get you in a room a little bit quicker that way. So we had yesterday, some folks signed out, so we kind of lost them, then we had to pick them up again. So we want to be able to go ahead and get you in the appropriate breakout session. And if you don't have any preference for, whatever you attend, we will go ahead and stick you into a session. Somebody's having problems with it opening up. So we'll check that, make sure we get the correct link in there as well. But let's go ahead and get started. I want to introduce Emily Austin with NASF. Emily is the communication coordinator with the National Association of State Foresters, which is a nonprofit organization that's composed of all of the directors of the forestry agencies in the 50 states, 5 U.S. territories, 3 nations in compacts of free association with the U.S. and the District of Columbia. In addition to the Smokey Bear campaign, her work entails managing NASF's social media presence and developing communication materials for NASF interest in Congress. She also oversees NASF's National Awards program, including the Wildfire Mitigation Award and the Smokey Bear Awards. She received her Bachelor of Arts in International Relations from American University. So, Emily, I'll let you go ahead and take it away. And then I know we've got a couple of other folks that will be working with us from the Ad Council, and we'll go ahead and introduce them as we move along.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. Actually, Diego, I see his camera's on. If you want to introduce yourself, or Robin can introduce you, and we can start sharing our slideshow.
Okay, let me go ahead and introduce Dago here. I'll find your, get down to your bio here. Here it is. Dago is the assistant campaign manager at the Ad Council, an advertising nonprofit based in New York City. He's responsible for assisting with the implementation of fully integrated multimedia PSA campaigns and activations on behalf of various organizations. In addition to the wildfire campaign, he also works on adoption from foster care, a campaign centered around the need for teens in foster care to find forever families, and transforming hiring and diversing talent, a campaign focused on changing perceptions and driving employers to hire stars, workers skilled to alternative roles, routes instead of a bachelor's degree. Dago currently resides in Chicago and is a graduate of the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. So welcome, Dago. Glad to have you with us this morning.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction and really excited to present. Let me share my screen real quick. Um, Just want to make sure that that screen sharing okay for everyone before I get started with everything.
Yes, looks good.
Awesome. So just to kick us off, I'm going to be running through some of the items currently going on the Smokey Bear campaign. Again, at any point, anyone has any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. And at the end, we do have some time set aside for a Q&A. But just to get us started, a quick agenda of what the presentation is going to look like. I'm going to run through a quick overview of everything on the campaign as of right now. Then we're going to run through some updates for the new work coming in this year and next. And then wrapping it up with some updates on Smokey Bear's 80th birthday. So uh, obviously not going to spend a ton of time introducing Forest Service or NASF, but just for a little bit of context here, we have FCB. That's the agency of record that works on the wildfire prevention campaign alongside with the Ad Council. So they're a creative agency based all over the world. They have offices all over the world. And a little fun fact here is that they've actually been with the campaign for the 80 years that it's almost running. So they've actually been with Smokey Bear since its very creation and are responsible for a lot of the PSAs and a lot of the creative that the campaign has put out over the decades. So really exciting partnership there, and just excited to continue being a part of that history and that work there. And just a quick campaign overview of the wildfire prevention campaign. So again, the main objective is to prevent human-caused wildfires by encouraging that personal responsibility piece, really making sure that we let the audiences know that everyone has that responsibility to put out or to not cause wildfires, and imparting knowledge of individual actions that people can take to prevent that. So a big piece of that is just, again, passing along Smokey's tips and message to make sure that we're letting the audiences know how to prevent those wildfire starts. And then our target audiences, this is a little bit of a unique campaign. We have two separate ones, the outdoor enthusiasts who are primarily aged 18 through 34, and the wildland urban interface residents primarily aged around 25 to 54. For the sakes of the presentation, I'll be calling them our WUI audiences, but basically I'll go a little bit into detail in the next couple of slides on what kind of differentiates them and how and why we target them specifically. But the main message, again, is only you can prevent wildfires. Of course, Smokey's iconic message there, with the call to action being to follow prevention behaviors highlighted not only in the PSAs, but also visit the smokeybear.com website to really impart that knowledge piece and get people to see Smokey's tips and information. And here is a metrics of success slide. For a little bit of context, here at the Ad Council, we have multimedia campaigns that run on various platforms through various creative means. So we have many different ways of measuring the success of the campaign. The first one is exposure. This is based on our donated media and earned media. So this is just how we're getting this out into the public. How are we getting our creative assets, the commercials, the radio PSAs out of home? How much of that is going out there and being seen? So that's the detections and impressions, and similarly the PR impressions, just how many people are actually seeing our work and message. Which moves on to the awareness piece. That is just being aware of not just the ad, but also Smokey Bear for this campaign. So this is measured through surveys that we launch every month, just tracking basically essentially how much of the population is aware of not just Smokey's message, but Smokey Bear himself. Given that Smokey Bear is such an iconic figure, we track that as well to really make sure that we're kind of keeping up with that history and doing our due diligence there with the awareness piece. And then for the engagement, we have website analytics and social media. So the website analytics are just measuring how many people are going to the website, the video views, and just again, since a big piece of our campaign is to drive to the website to be able to impart that knowledge with our audiences, we really want to just keep tracking and making sure that we are driving to that at the end of the day, so that our PSAs are all leading to that piece. And then for the social media, we have the impressions and engagements. Again, Smokey being the iconic figure that he is, we see great engagements on social media with people commenting and really engaging with his social media presence, which is all in part due to Help Good, a social media agency that helps us kind of plan and organize Smokey's social media platforms. So again, we keep track of that to really make sure that we're not just growing his social media presence, but really engaging with the audiences in a way that's going to impart the most knowledge in general. And then lastly, the most important piece is the impact. So the attitudes and behaviors, again, just through that survey measuring our campaigns and messages around Smokey Bear and preventing wildfires being effective. So this is just measuring the percentage lift in those who agree that they can make a difference in preventing wildfires, and percentage lift in those who have looked for information or learn actions they can take to prevent a wildfire from starting. So again, all of this, all of the other metrics, all at the end of the day lead to the impact, because at the end of the day, the big item here is preventing those wildfires. So we just want to be sure that everything that we do ultimately is making that long lasting impact and really reaching our audiences in a really great and targeted way. And then just a little bit about the campaign development process. So here at the Ad Council, we have a specific approach on how we approach all of our PSAs. Everything, of course, starts with research and planning. We make sure that we follow up not just with the organizations that we work with and agencies that we work with, but also do a ton of research within our audiences and the issue itself to really make sure that we find the root and try to do our best to make a PSA centered around that. Which leads into the strategy development. And this is the piece where we start to tie in those partners such as FCB mentioned earlier to kind of figure out what's the best way to reach our audiences and ultimately leading to the creative development. So this is when FCB fully comes in and takes in that control over just making the creative concepts, making the new PSAs. There's obviously different platforms and ways of doing that. That could be through radio, through TV, digital banners, out of home. Not limited to those, but the creative development piece is the actual development of those concepts, which then goes into communications checks, which is currently circled in red because that's at the current stage that we are at in the campaign right now. So after any creative development, the team takes a step back and we go through an extensive communications research process, which is just making sure that we test those concepts with our audiences and the public in general, just to make sure that they are effective. We want to make any optimizations, edits, and revisions based on what we're hearing. So right now we have a couple of concepts that are going to go into testing later this month. Again, just to get any feedback, hear what the audience thinks, what they like, what they don't like, so that we can make those changes and really make sure that our PSAs are not just resonating, but leaving that lasting impact that we want to have. Which moves on to the production piece, which is the next step in this cycle, and that's just when the actual creative gets produced. So this is what typically is associated with the development process. So that means like the actual production shoot, hiring a production agency, having casting, locations, wardrobe, and all those pieces coming together and really making the concept come to life. Which then ultimately leads to the launch and the media activation. So this is just when we at the Ad Council get the work out into the public for the first time, really making sure that we're not just getting it out, but also getting it out in a targeted and meaningful way. We want to make sure that we're reaching the people that we want to reach in times that are critical for the issues themselves. So that includes this piece here. And ultimately, the final step here is evaluation and optimization. Of course, after everything is said and done, we want to make sure that we're still tracking and making sure that all the work and everything that is being done is effective. So this is when we, again, take another step back and make sure that we evaluate the results. We see how the assets are performing once they're out, see what we can change for future plans and what we can do to better the campaign and issue messaging as well. And then ultimately goes back to the research and planning phase to do it all over again. But essentially, this is a cycle that has been running for a few years now, and we'll go into a little bit more into the current one that we're in a few slides. And with that said, I will toss it over to Emily for a few slides as well.
Hi, so just to kind of go over how Americans feel about Smokey Bear, and why Smokey Bear is super important right now. Almost 2/3 of Americans think that climate change has been making wildfires worse, and almost 3/4 of Americans worry that some form of extreme weather is going to displace them. But luckily, most Americans feel like they can make a difference in preventing fires, and that's where Smokey Bear comes in. So, like Diego said, we have two primary audiences, the outdoor enthusiasts and the wildland urban interface residents. And while they have different ages and demographics, the key common ground between them is that they want to learn how to prevent wildfires and don't always know how. And that is how Smokey helps. So this comes from some consumer research, and we see that almost all Americans have a love and admiration for Smokey Bear. They trust him and respect him. And one respondent to this survey said he's not preachy. He tells you how you can be a better person, but not in a preachy way, which I think personally kind of embodies what Smokey is all about. He's trying to teach you how to do good, but isn't telling you that you're automatically doing something wrong. And that brings us to our strategy. All current and previous rounds of creative work under the Wildfire Prevention Campaign operate under this simple yet effective strategy to encourage audiences to take urgent, meaningful action with Smokey Bear's help. Now, we have a lot of tips on how to prevent wildfires, and we've broken them down into two broad categories. The first one is avoiding sparks, and this is just taking a little extra precaution when doing things like yard work or driving to make sure that you don't accidentally create sparks. And then the second is drown, stir, drown, feel, which is the steps for putting out any kind of fire. It's mostly applied to campfires. But it could be campfires, burning backyard debris, anything like that. You want to make sure that a fire is out cold so it doesn't spread to a nearby forest. And then I will pass it back to Diego to talk about our upcoming PSAs.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily. So again, gonna just run through some of the target audience profiles here and give a little bit more context to the audiences. The first one is the outdoor enthusiast. These are urbanites who like to escape to nature for the weekend. So this could be people who live in the cities who just like to go hiking over the weekend, visit the parks and everything there. So they're adults aged 18 through 34, visit wildlands for recreational purposes. They tend to be male skewed. But have that adventurous spirit that really brings them out from their urban areas. And at the end of the day, they really do value nature and want to do good, but their actions don't always necessarily match their intentions. And this can be just in large part that knowledge piece, simply not knowing that some of the actions that they take can lead to a wildfire accidentally. So I think that's the big piece here for the outdoor enthusiast. And then we have the wildland urban interface residents, the WUI audiences, and these are people who live where private property meets public land. So they're a little bit more closer to home in that sense. And these are adults ages to 25 through 54, live near the wooded and open wildlands, and likely to be working parents and living in those small towns and outer suburbs. Very family oriented, and I think the big piece for this audience is that outdoor activities are just a part of everyday life, which is a little bit different from the outdoor enthusiast. So this could be things like barbecues, camping, going out, fishing, things like that. Like it's just being outdoor and doing outdoor activities is just a common everyday part of life for them. And then just to talk a little bit about the how and how we try to really target the specific tips and messages that we're getting out. So for the outdoor enthusiasts, we have the backyard fire pit, camping fire tips, dumping ashes, and parking a vehicle on dry grass. So again, these are a little bit more oriented towards the outdoor enthusiasts just based on how they are interacting with nature. And similar for the WUI audiences, it's similar tips, but we also included additional ones such as dragging chains behind a vehicle and making sure that those are properly secured. And similarly with like dumping ashes and debris burning in backyard, just again making sure that the messages are specific not just to the audiences, to the general public as a whole, but the audiences themselves. Awesome. And then to talk a little bit about the campaign performance, just a little bit of context. This is from January 2022 all the way through the end of March this year. So a little over a year's worth of information here. In terms of donated media, the Ad Council was able to secure 46.9 million donated media dollars. And just a little bit of background here, donated media is the model in which the Ad Council really gets our messages out. This means that we have networks, partners that provide their advertising space to us on a pro bono basis to be able to really get our messages out here. So an example, this could be Comcast here is listed as one of the top supporters in the NFL Network. They reach out to us and our connections. They say we have X amount of donated media space. Which campaigns would you like to run? And then we organize based on not just the campaigns themselves, but which audiences best fit within these platforms. And then we get the messages out there in a timely manner. So as you can see here, definitely seeing some great overall donated media pickup, and Smokey Bear being such an iconic figure and being so widely known also leads to such a huge contribution to the donated media partner. We see that partners are always really excited to be able to be a part of the campaign and really be able to spread that message out further, with some of those big donated media partners being NFL Network, Boomerang and Cartoon Network, Comcast, Double Verify, which is a digital media digital programmatic platform, and Daily Record. So next slide here. And just to talk about issue authority and robust resources. So this is just the smokeybear.com website and giving a little bit more background on that and how that performed over the past little over a year. So we had 21 million people visit the website, with 18.7 million of those going into the prevention page view. So this is just, again, how many people are going onto the website, seeing those pages where we have all the tips and where all of Smokey's knowledge lives. Again, this is one of the main goals of the campaign, because we want to impart that knowledge within our audiences and really show them the many ways that they can prevent a wildfire and how we're all responsible for doing our part in that as well. And then some quick screenshots here on educational content. So a little bit more on some of those steps, guides, and instructions that we have on the website. So these are all just resources that live within the website that people can kind of pull up, share, and go back to when they are in the outdoors. And then just to give a quick glimpse into the work that we have coming up in the next year, and for Smokey's 80th birthday. So this is a quick calendar of the 2023 activities. As of right now, we are in production for radio, out of home, and digital banners. So we are working to put together some new radio PSAs, which should be launching in the next 2 weeks or so, and alongside some out of home and digital banners, just to be able to refresh those for the campaign. So we do have some new work coming out this month over running through June. We have the radio media tour, which is just, again, making sure that we're getting the new radio assets out into the wild and appropriate locations. Leading into Smokey's 80th birthday, and Smokey Within Concepts in August. So we have a major production happening towards the end of the summer, where we're going to be producing multiple spots, not just for the 80th birthday, but before as well, with the first round launching right in September, October, followed by Smokey's birthday launching a couple of months after that. And just calling out a few other key milestones in this calendar as of right now include the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in November. So having Smokey's Balloon be a part of that parade, again, great coverage there, and really just, again, getting Smokey out in the best way possible. We have a couple of press tours once those new PSAs launch in September and October. And then just to talk a little bit about the media support and partnerships, we have the ongoing earned media opportunities running throughout the year. So this is just the Ad Council continuing to reach out to partners and within our network to make sure that we can get Smokey out in as many places as possible. But some of those secured ones already are programmatic flights with the Trade Desk and YouTube flights. So these are programmatic flights, again, through our digital partners to really get Smokey's messages out. For example, the YouTube one, that could be when someone clicks on a YouTube video and you get those ads. So we're going to be having Smokey PSAs running in that sense for the new PSAs in the early fall. And as you can see here, we have current media support from Sling TV, VDX, and a few others that are still to be determined. But so far this year, we've had a great pickup from Fox, Apple TV, Hearst, and MIQ, and Washington Post. So still a lot coming, and we're still very much working through a lot of things, but really great updates coming over the next year or so for Smokey Bear. And then just to go over some of the new campaign materials. So we have the Smokey Within, which is the current concept that is being produced. That's going to be launching first in September, October. And then we have the Smokey Bear's 80th birthday work. So the Smokey Within concept, again, we really want to empower our audience to share the same values as Smokey does. He's been, I'll just read it through here. He's been our forest-friendly bear for nearly 78 years, educating us all in ways we can prevent unwanted wildfires. And again, this really came from that research piece where we not only heard great things about Smokey, but there's this sense of nostalgia, this sense of trust that's really coming from our audiences when it comes to Smokey Bear. People feel that connection to him in that sense. So we really wanted to play on that with this new creative concept. So we wanted to show how Smokey sharing his wildfire prevention tips with others really at the end of the day is just teaching everyone to really do their own part when it comes to preventing these wildfires. But again, this all came from the research when we were talking to our audiences and really seeing that connection with Smokey Bear. And for some reason, the creative stim won't play, but I could talk to it a little bit here. Of course, technical difficulties. But basically, the Smokey Within concept plays on the fact that Smokey's within us all, in the sense that we all play a role when it comes to preventing wildfires. So we have the radio scripts here, which I can actually share. I won't read through them all, but just to give a bit of an example here, it's going to be a conversation between a dad and a son, talking about just kind of putting up putting out a campfire and doing it in the way that is appropriate and right. So it's the dad kicking off that conversation. But then the big twist here is when the sunset Smokey Bear said to, it's going to switch to Smokey's voice in the radio asset. So it's, again, Smokey's going to be saying, it's going to be in Smokey's voice, the first drown it with a bucket of water and giving the tip, but it's actually the son talking, again, really imparting that piece that we all play a role in preventing these wildfires, and overall just really trying to show that connection with the audience that the audience has with Smokey Bear. But yeah, that's the Smokey Within concept, again, really playing on that piece with our audiences. And then just to talk campaign deliverables for Smokey Within. So we're going to have a 30 and a 15-second radio asset within this concept, static and animated banners in various sizes. So this will be things that you see online when you're scrolling, just in various platforms online. So we're going to have various different versions and sizes to be able to accommodate for all different types of platforms. We have billboards, bus shelters, magazine, and newspaper being created as well. So these are the more traditional forms of advertising, making sure that we can still get Smokey on some great billboards. We always see great pickup from our partners and from the audience reception piece as well on the billboards. We always see great posts on social media with people posing with the Smokey Bear out of home billboards. So we really wanted to refresh those and make sure that we can get new ones out there for the public. And similarly for print, just again, getting Smokey out in as many ways as possible. And these will be coming at some point this month, going into next as well. And then the big piece, the 30 and 15 TV spots, which will be coming in September. And this will all fall within that Smokey Within concept, which leads into the campaign deliverables for the 80th birthday. We're still currently in development for the concept for the 80th birthday, but it is going to play with, it's going to build off of the Smokey Within concept. So we're still working with FCB to really flesh out how that's going to come out. in the actual assets themselves. But as of right now, what we can share is that it's going to be building off what we already have going right now. And this will be coming in January 2024 and onwards once it's Smokey's 80th. So we're going to have a 30 and 15 radio asset as well. So we'll have another round of radio creative to share, some additional static and animated banners, again, in all various sizes, billboards, bus shelters, magazine, and newspaper. And then similarly for TV, we'll have the 30s and the 15s with the addition of the 60s as well. And the 60 again will probably be more, not so much for getting the message out there since there's not a ton of 60s pickup, but more for that 80th birthday piece to really leave something there for everyone to see. And I believe that takes us through everything. So again, I can't see the chat right now, but if anybody has any questions, please feel free to come off mute or
characteristics with this airplane compared to the P-51, some of the other airplanes, it's
let
quite
me
novel,
stop sharing.
actually. It's very surprising on some of the things it does really well.
How similar is the cockpit and how it's all set up compared to a Mustang?
I'd say pretty similar.
I'm not sure that was part of our question and answer session or not.
Michael Downey, go ahead.
Yeah, so thanks, Diego, for that. I have a question. So what are you seeing that's working? Because you're seeing a lot of good feedback from people using the website, a good percentage of people that are concerned about fire prevention. However, in the Southeast, we still have 90% are human caused, and of that 90%, probably a good percentage being that WUI, the debris burning and so forth. So where are you seeing that's working, and where are those like obstacles and those challenges to reach out to the WUI folks?
Yeah, I think a big piece with that comes from the knowledge piece. A lot of the things, based on our research when we were talking to the audiences, we got a lot of answers and a lot of responses around simply not knowing. So an example was when we told people about how not properly securing tow chains could lead to a wildfire, or maybe even parking over dry grass, the hot undercarriage could also spark. People were kind of shocked to find that out. And the more obviously more people are aware of like the more common wildfire causes, such as not properly putting out the fire to begin with, but those more obscure, like the ones that people don't probably think of every day, seem to really be, again, that knowledge piece of simply not even knowing that that could even cause a wildfire. And that goes for both the outdoor enthusiast and the WUI audiences. We just kept finding that people just simply weren't aware that the actions that they were doing could potentially lead to a fire. So I think that's a big piece as to why we're trying to approach Smokey's PSAs the way we are right now. Is really just trying to drive that drive to the website and drive people that this goes far beyond just properly putting out your campfire and just like being aware that you can start a wildfire. There's actual steps that we all have to take. There's a responsibility that we all share. And in terms of the messaging, what we did find was really helpful, or is helpful, is Smokey Bear himself. Again, which is why we're really heavily centering around Smokey this time around. Over the past couple of years, we've been still centered around Smokey, but in different ways with Smokey AI, which was a little bit more of an emoji. I'm not sure if people have seen that asset, but now we're going back to a live actor in a suit, Smokey, bringing him back into that traditional feel, that traditional way that we're all used to seeing Smokey, to really get people to listen to him again. We really want to, in that sense, connect with our audiences again through Smokey, because for both audiences, again, we were seeing really great reception and feedback when it came to Smokey telling the tips. So it's a combination of both using Smokey to our advantage in that sense and using like his iconic history and nostalgia feel, but again, really trying to impart the knowledge piece within the audiences, because what we found again was just that piece that people just simply didn't know that their actions could lead to that wildfire.
So you think that the more or less the threat in the Southeast just isn't there, and they're not aware that a debris burning, could escape and cause a wildland fire, versus, someone that's born and raised in California that's lived around it that you know had a 20,000, 100,000 acre fire. So they're more aware of it versus someone from DC or New York City vacating to Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina.
Yeah, based on some of the respondents and some of the answers we were getting, it was that. For the most part, it was just, again, people were kind of shocked to find out that some of the things that we were saying could cause wildfires. Like a big one was mowing and using lawn equipment on a really hot, dry summer day could lead to a spark. If there's like a rock or something on the ground and it could spark when it hits the lawnmower, things like that. People were shocked, and we saw like there was genuine concern from people. It's like people weren't necessarily thinking like, oh, like I didn't really care to begin with. It was just very much like, oh, I had no idea. Like that's something that I would have never have thought of to begin with. I would have simply like just mowed my lawn and gone about my day, but not knowing that. So it really is that just being aware of everyone's individual actions, and again how, which is why we're trying to really leverage Smokey in the campaign itself to go past beyond the only you can prevent wildfires to really just impart that knowledge and let people know that there's unlimited ways that wildfires could be started that might not be so common as simply just not properly extinguishing a campfire.
And Diego, I don't think I can't speak for all the Southeast, but I know in Florida, I don't think there's an awareness that we actually have as many wildfires as we do because they don't get the media coverage that the ones out west get. So when I tell people, "Hey, I'm a wildland firefighter," they're like, "Wait, we have wildfires here?" And it's like, "Yeah, we do."
Yeah, no, definitely. And that is a reason why we also try to do really targeted regional outreach as well. So we, through the guidance of USFS and ANSA and ASF, we get information on what seasons are more prevalent and or what when wildfires are more prevalent in certain regions and seasons, and try to do more targeted outreach in those spaces as well. So we know that there's certain times where maybe California or that side of the country might be more prone to have a wildfire, and we try to reach out to our partners and secure more out of home or digital TV donated media within those time frames. So we definitely try to cater the campaign to really target during critical times, but also regions as well, since we know that that can shift throughout the year just based on the seasons and timing.
Go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, go ahead, Pete.
Hey, Diego and Emily, thank you both. I got to admit to being a little surprised that the two target audiences, neither one includes what, sort of intuitively to me is a big target audience, which is kids, right? So can you speak just a little bit to the integration? Smokey plays well from preschool to 80-year-olds in some circumstances. So can you speak a little bit to the younger audiences and how they're part of the campaign?
Yeah, definitely. And this is actually something that we're very actively thinking about and working on, specifically going into the next year as well. Obviously, Smokey Bear being such an iconic figure, we don't want to just limit him to within the audiences. I think the audiences that we had in this deck are more related to our donated media and how we reach people. But again, this campaign being so long standing, it expands way past that. There's people who have seen Smokey since they were children and now are nearly 80 years old. So again, it's not limited to just that, but we definitely do take steps to ensure that Smokey Bear is getting out, specifically to like getting his message out to children. So doing different activations within partners and just offering resources on the website. So there's various things that we try to do to still reach everyone, since we know that it's not just this specific audience that could potentially start a wildfire. So we have done activations with schools in the past. We have conversations about how we can try to get Smokey's image and message in general out to children more as well for that awareness piece. Even though there might be things that might not necessarily apply, we still want to be sure that his message is recognizable. So we do have resources up on our toolkit on our website for children, for educators to be able to share during schools. again, we are actively thinking of ways to incorporate that more into the future activations of the campaign. And I can let Emily fill in a little bit more there, because I know there's also been talks within USFS and NASF about potentially doing things with different platforms and activations there to be able to reach children. I know that there was recently a game that was released on phones, on an app that USFS worked on, that was again just focused on reaching the general audiences. So I will say that even though we have the WUI and the outdoor enthusiasts labeled, they're not necessarily limited. The messaging and the campaign itself isn't necessarily limited to that, and we're always thinking of ways on how we can expand past that. And again, Smokey being the iconic figure that he is, we definitely do want to get his message out to children, especially just for that awareness piece, and kind of continue to build on the legacy so that 20, 30, 40 years from now, people who are kids now look back and they can look at Smokey the same way that older adults look at Smokey now and think like in that nostalgic way. So we do want to continue that legacy and history there as well, for future decades to come.
Yeah, I'll just jump in here, and I see the comment about Smokey programs in schools. Those are definitely super popular. I remember when Smokey visited me in school. I'm sure a lot of you can remember that as well. It definitely has been a challenge with COVID, but there's a lot of different strategies as well. I'm going to drop a link in the chat, shameless plug for the NASF store. We have lots of Smokey materials, posters, coloring sheets, and those are things that are actually going to connect with kids. They might not understand a radio or TV PSA, but a coloring sheet with some tips on it can be very helpful. So that's an option. Definitely would love if you support our store or the U.S. Forest Service store. And then one other thing that I wanted to plug is the Smokey Bear poster contest, which is held every year through the National Garden Club Association. And that's definitely, we would love to see some more traction with that. I do think it's pretty popular in the South, though, so maybe I'm not talking to the right group and you already know about this, but that's also really good, and it gets kids really excited about Smokey. It gives them a chance to come to DC and really feel like they're making a difference.
And a very quick note that I wanted to note on the donated media pickup: we had Boomerang and Cartoon Network be some of the biggest supporters for the campaign. And those are children's cartoon channels and platforms. So the messaging is very much still reaching children in that sense. So we are getting it in front of not just our audiences, but everyone in general, because we did see great support from both of those channels over the past little over a year.
Okay. Any other questions for Emily and Dago? Yeah, definitely. I definitely want to put a plug in for the NASF store as well. There's a lot of good items there that you really can't find anywhere else, particularly like the posters that have been very popular with teachers and students, as well as the Smokey Bear Pocket Planner. It's still there and still available in season, so definitely check that out.
We actually just sold out of our pocket planner, so
Really, for
yeah,
2023?
adults our most popular product.
Wow. Okay.
But yes, next year, get ready for it.
2024 is coming, so
Yeah,
yeah,
it's super
definitely.
cute. I have mine here. Don't go anywhere without it.
It's still very, very popular. Well, thank you both. I think great information on Smokey Bear, some of the developments, and we're all very excited about the 80th anniversary coming up. Looks like it just seemed like we just celebrated the 75th anniversary. We still have all of the materials for that, so we got to get ready for another round of birthday celebrations. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.